lead prosecutor in the case. Jeff Ashton is my guest right now. Good to see you, Mr. Ashton.
Good to be here.
I know it's been a whirlwind for you since the verdict came down, but now we're starting to hear from the jurors, and the one thing is they just couldn't get to murder. The evidence, according to them, did not get them to murder. Did you ever think that in your wildest dreams?
I didn't, and you know, when we look at the photographs of how Kaylee was found and the evidence, you know, we saw something. Obviously, the jurors didn't see it, and that's part of the jury system, is they get to look at it the way they look at it. But I'd always said that if someone could look at the photographs of how she was found, the duct tape, where it was, and I know most people didn't get to see it in an unblurred way, which is good, you know. But, you know, it said something to me. And obviously it didn't to them, and that's the jury system.
Mm-hmm. So the cause of death, obviously you would have hoped that the coroner could have come to the stand. She did say it was homicide,
right,
but you hoped she could have been able to say suffocation.
Well, I mean, she was limited in what she could say medically, and I understand and respect Dr. Garvalia, and I wouldn't have wanted her to stretch beyond what the medicine would allow. Clearly she was correct. Medically, you couldn't tell that the tape killed her because the tape wasn't on flesh, you know. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that by putting the pieces together, you couldn't come to that conclusion. The jury didn't.
So one of the things the jury had to do in this case was they really did have to put together a puzzle. They didn't have DNA. They didn't have an eyewitness. And the lead defense counsel, Jose Baez, he is now being asked about whether or not you overcharged Casey Anthony in this case. Do you now think you went too far?
That's ridiculous. The jury was given options of lesser offenses, all the way down to manslaughter. So, you know, the jury had all the different options in front of them. You know, if our theory of what happened was correct, then it was first-degree murder, and we honestly believe that it was. Mm-hmm. To say that if we charged her with manslaughter, they might more likely have convicted her is just not true.
So it seemed like the judge allowed most of the things that you wanted to be admitted into court. Was there any evidence that was compelling that didn't get into court?
None that should have gotten into court. I mean, there was plenty of hearsay, rumor, speculation, things of that sort, which don't belong in a courtroom. So every piece of admissible evidence that the jury should have heard, they were allowed to hear. So no, there was nothing that I would say I wish we could have gotten in that we didn't.
Much has been made of your demeanor in court during closing arguments. After the judge had instructed the two of you to not have any sort of outbursts or reactions on your face. And I just want to show the video right here that during Jose Baez's closing, you were laughing. And I'm wondering now if you feel that that impacted the jury at all.
It doesn't. I don't think it did. I honestly don't think that what the lawyers do has that great an effect on the jurors, and obviously it didn't. None of them have mentioned it. You know, it was a long trial. We were all very, very tired. I shouldn't have let my amusement at what Mr. Baez was doing show. I did, but you know, no, that had nothing to do with the verdict in the case.
I want to go through a list of things you may not have expected to have happened in this case. Number one, that the defense in opening arguments would say that George Anthony and Lee Anthony, the brother to Casey, had sexually abused her. Did you know that? Did you have any idea of that before Jose Baez said it that day? Yes,
we knew that. We had known that through some discovery in the case, which was sealed from public view because of the nature of it. So we knew that. You know, we expected some of that, him to say some of that in opening. We were surprised when none of it was actually proven in court. That did surprise us a little bit, but we knew it was coming.
It's interesting because that seemed to not be important to the jury at all because he was not allowed to use it in his closing. Number two, they didn't appear to believe George Anthony, and he was one of your star witnesses, right?
Yeah, I was actually, it would be interesting to hear more from them about what they actually thought of him. I can't imagine that they thought he actually did anything involved in this case. You know, George Anthony clearly was affected, as anyone would be, by being accused of, you know, disposing of his granddaughter's body the way it was disposed of.
But do you think he had anything to do with this case?
No, I do not. I don't think anyone could read particularly the suicide letter that he wrote and believe he had anything to do with this.
All right. Number three, the things you may not have expected, that the jury believed she was a good mother.
Yeah, that does surprise me, based upon the conduct after the crime occurred. That does surprise me, that they would accept the snippets of things that people said, and
not the 31 days when she went out
exactly.
and partied after the daughter was missing.
Yeah.
Of all the cases, is this the one that got away now that you're retiring?
No, there's been others that we didn't get the verdict we wanted in. It happens in 30-year career. You expect that sometimes. This was one of the more surprising ones, I will say that, but it happens.
Jeff Ashton, the lead prosecutor in the Casey Anthony case. Thanks so much for joining Fox and Friends.